And once you take away their support system for that day, or even for a few minutes, it could be an hour, it changes the dynamics of the room.
Now, the union that represents him is the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation. They also look after nearly 900 support staff members like him at the English Public School Board at both the elementary and high school level.
So, Jason, did you get a sense of why we're seeing these shortages of support staff?
Well, the union says there are a few issues at play here. One, that the number of students requiring supports has increased, but the number of support staff has not, which is why they say some of the support workers are getting stretched thin. But he also says compensation is a way to show appreciation, and support staff at the public board make less compared to other boards, even locally, if you do some comparisons. Now, depending on the day, the union says it's not uncommon for an EA to also do some responsibilities of an ECE and disability support worker if they're short on staff.
We're in a crisis. We're in dire need of support staff. We're in dire need of temporary support staff. The members in my school right now are working 3 jobs at a time. They're being stretched out throughout the schools. They're being burnt out. So to recruit and retain people to come to our school board, it's very hard when you're a temporary support staff making $18 an hour to go in Monday through Friday to get potentially bit, hit, to deal with social emotional issues. It is hard to retain and recruit people when the job is this big, but the pay is this little.
So you heard him say they're $18 an hour. That's for supply educational assistants at the English Public Board. At the Catholic Board, he says people in that identical role make $25 an hour. He says that contributes to this shortage because some weeks you'll have 10 resignations and 10 new hires. So in his eyes, it's hard to fill the gaps when retaining these workers is part of the problem. Katarina.
Thanks for this, Jason. The CBC's Jason Veal live tonight. It's more simmer than sizzle in Windsor's real estate market at the moment. Prices are still high, but there's a lull in the frantic activity seen 6 months ago. It means buyers have a better chance of landing a home, and sellers have to up their game to draw people in.
Welcome, come on in.
Julie Capitan owns Lemon Tree Living. She does home staging in Windsor, Essex, and says her business has doubled since June.
I would say in the spring, when there was a bit of a buying frenzy and houses were on the market for a very short period of time and people were getting multiple offers.
In other words, it was easier to sell.
But something shifted, I think, in May and June, and the calls started to come in.
What shifted was more listings throughout the summer. You can see how the number has doubled since January. That means sellers are getting fewer offers on individual homes.
So when buyers have more choice, sellers have to do a little bit more to stand out from the crowd, so to say. So they have to do more in terms of professional photography, videography, staging. They want to make sure that there's more, as many as possible on their property so it gets sold for top dollar.
So there is more inventory. So now you got to stand out. Your property has to stand out. That means your realtor and your stager, have to do a fantastic job by pricing it right, by presenting it well to attract as many buyers as possible.
That's where folks like Capitan come in. This home was flipped by a company. The company then hired Capitan to beautify it further. It sold for more than $100,000 over asking.
Previous in my real estate career, I didn't think it was important. To be honest, I've sold houses before, and now that we're doing this in more volume, I have a massive respect for stagers, and it has helped my business tremendously. I would not sell a house now without a stager.
But it can be a pricey option. It starts at about $1,000, but could go up to $5,000 or more, depending on how much furniture you need and the size of the home. So for sellers who'd prefer to skip professional staging, Capitan has some advice.
So the most important thing that you can do when you're preparing your home for staging is to depersonalize your home. So all your family photos need to come down. The next most important thing to do is declutter. And that's just not removing the visual clutter that's in every room, all of our little knickknacks and tchotchkes that we keep out, but it's also cleaning out our closets, our medicine cabinets, and our kitchen cabinets, because people open those. The next thing is to clean your house. It needs to be spotless.
Meanwhile, even though there's a climate shift, it's still a seller's market.
Well, buyers are certainly in a better position due to these, the things that are happening in the market. But you also have to note that prices have still gone up.
The average price of a Windsor Essex home in September was about $550,000, about 27% higher than the same time last year. And you can find more on this story if you just go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. The decision on the Riverfront Plaza canopy has been pushed. City Council has referred back to administration to make changes and provide more options. But it's not the only project along the river. A group in Windsor has concerns the streetcar may block the legacy site.
The actual reason for naming this the legacy site is right here behind me. These are still the foundation stones and the bridge of the original 1800s CP Rail train station and control tower. That's the reason why the legacy site is named Legacy Site. That's the legacy of Windsor that we need to celebrate and help people get informed about.
Cardinal says the streetcar location would block the view. In the last hour, City Council decided in a 7-4 vote to locate the streetcar and building in the Legacy Park. It will cost $8.4 million rather than the $7.4 million it would have downriver near the bridge. That is due to the extra work involved in the building site. The streetcar facility will also include a terrace, washrooms, and concession stands. The Windsor-Essex County Health Unit says it will be monitoring the newly loosened COVID-19 restrictions across Ontario. On Friday, the province released a tentative timeline for the easing of pandemic rules, like how vaccination and masking requirements are expected to lift early next year. And starting today, capacity limits are lifting in most settings where proof of vaccination is required, like restaurants, casinos, and gyms. Meanwhile, the region continues to see a decline in new and active cases. The health unit reported 43 new cases since Friday, including an additional death, a man in his 60s. And currently, there are 161 active cases. That's the lowest number since August. And Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare is tightening its vaccination policy, this time for visitors and designated care partners. Starting November 22nd, they'll need to be fully vaccinated or will be denied entry. The hospital will require proof showing 14 days have passed since their second dose. Currently, guests can enter with proof of a negative PCR test, but that won't be accepted as of November 22nd. A Toronto family says they were left high and dry by a cruise line because they're Canadians. The father and son say they were turned away from boarding a ship in Florida last month. As Chris Ensing explains, they say efforts to get their money back are adrift.
Billed as a return to the golden age of cruise ships, the MSC Divina impressed the Penners. They won tickets for a trip on this ship in 2020, but couldn't immediately travel because of COVID-19. Last month, Eli Penner and his dad packed their bags and flew to Florida.
I didn't realize it was going to be that big. We saw it from a distance already. Everything was exciting, and then all of a sudden we get to the port and everything went south.
Standing on the pier steps from the ship, the Penners presented their passports to the cruise staff.
Oh, you guys are from Canada? Yeah, these are our passports. These are everything. Oh, you guys can't board. We're not boarding Canadians. So, it's painful, we come all the way to the port, welcome to board, and get spat in our faces.
Eli says the cruise line handed him this letter that says the Penners were denied boarding because they're Canadian citizens before being escorted out of the terminal by a sheriff's deputy.
It's like what happened to Moses. Moses wanted to come to the promised land, and then God showed him the promised land from far, and he told him, cannot come to the promised land.
Eli says in the half a dozen calls he had with the cruise line in the weeks before his trip, he says he had to provide their passport numbers, home address, and the company never flagged that it was not accepting Canadians.
Oh, because we're Canadian, we can't board the ship now? Oh yeah, they should have told you. So they should have, could have, would have, they didn't.
MSC Cruises declined our interview requests, but in a statement says the Penners, quote, did not have the mandatory trip cancellation and trip interruption insurance for cruising with us, and as such were unable to board. The Penners say they were never told that. They want MSC to reimburse them for their expenses. They say the company's offered to book them on a later cruise.
I don't even know if I want to go back to MSC Cruises or to go to the States or even on a cruise in the future because it was such a bad experience.
The company says it will soon have a new policy for Canadians wanting to book its cruises, but Penner says what happened to him and his dad has shipwrecked his dreams. Chris Hensing, CBC News, Toronto.
Moderna says a low dose of its COVID-19 vaccine is safe and appears to work for kids 6 to 11 years old. Moderna is the latest vaccine maker to propose expanding its shots to children under 12. The study involved more than 4,700 children who were given 2 shots 1 month apart. Each shot contained half of the dose meant for adults. Early results showed those kids developed similar levels of virus-fighting antibodies as young adults receiving full-strength shots. The number of participants is considered too small to look for potential side effects. Moderna says studies are ongoing to determine the vaccine's effectiveness in preventing COVID-19 among children. Next to a story for anyone feeling like they can't put their work phones away, even on evenings and weekends. The Ford government is making most employers in Ontario put in place what's called a, quote, right to disconnect policy. It could apply to some 5 million workers in this province. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has more details.
At 1 o'clock every day.
Working from home. For many people, it's been one of the pandemic's biggest changes. But what about when your work life bleeds so much into home life that you're on the phone or answering emails nonstop?
Everyone should be able to unplug at the end of their workday.
Labour Minister Monty McNaughton is at this downtown Toronto co-working space to announce right to disconnect legislation. Every workplace with 25 employees or more will have to establish policies to allow staff to turn off after hours.
The lines between work and personal time has really blurred during this pandemic, and this is a step in the right direction to really help the mental health of workers.
Ontario will be the first place in Canada with such legislation. Its aim is not just better work-life balance, but also helping companies retain skilled staff.
That's really important to have a policy in place just to provide employees with the knowledge that they don't have to be on all the time, because I think if left alone, people are just going to assume that they have to be connected.
When people go on vacation and take time off, we absolutely insist that they put on their out of office notices, as well as avoid their cell phones at all costs.
Critics question whether the measure will have any teeth.
The devil's going to definitely be in the details, right? And I think that enforcement of these proposed, policies may be difficult.
There is going to have to be a very clear rule as to when people are expected and when they're not expected to be available for work. Otherwise, you're just going to have, the chaos which we're really seeing now in some places.
Recognize the minister. The Ford government tabled its workplace legislation this afternoon.
The Working for Workers Act 2021 is how we're rebalancing the scales to lift people up and put workers in the driver's seat of Ontario's future.
That bill also wraps in some other announcements from over the past week. It includes stricter rules for temp agencies and changes to help some foreign-trained professionals get jobs in their fields. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
If you've rented a vehicle, you've probably been told about the convenience of returning it after hours. But this next story might make you think twice about dropping off those keys and walking away. A Toronto man discovered he was still on the hook for any damage until the rental company checked it back in. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
Samuel Wardlaw rented a cube van from this Enterprise location last May. He just needed it for a few hours to move, returned it after hours, and dropped off the keys as instructed.
I thought I would be done at the time the truck was returned and the keys were put through the slot, but that turned out not to be the case.
A week later, the car rental giant sent Wardlaw an unexpected email telling him the truck was damaged after he left it on the lot and that he was on the hook.
To see over $3,300 in damage, I was totally shocked.
Enterprise said a thief had stolen part of the exhaust system, like this one, the catalytic converter, full of precious metals valuable on the black market.
As per our company policy,
the car rental company pointed to a clause in its lengthy terms and conditions saying if a vehicle is returned during non-business hours, any damage, loss, or theft is the renter's responsibility.
It's their truck, it's their catalytic converter, and it's their lot. The fact that I rented it is somewhat incidental to the actual theft that happened. So I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they think it's 100% my liability.
Go Public checked the terms and conditions for all the major players, Enterprise, Avis, and Hertz. They control 95% of the car rental market in Canada. All have similar language.
They're relying on this single sentence buried in a 30-page document.
Lawyer Jennifer Marston says there's legal precedent. Companies need to be upfront if they want an unexpected clause in a contract to be enforceable.
If a company wants to put something in a contract that imposes a heavy burden on a consumer, it's incumbent upon them to bring that to the consumer's attention.
When Go Public contacted Enterprise, it insisted customers drop off vehicles after hours at their own risk. But it did drop its claim against Wardlaw with no explanation and apologized to its customer for confusion. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
A live look outside there. We've had rain all day long. There is a rainfall warning in effect for the region, and it's supposed to have been about 15 to 25 millimeters of rain throughout the day. So Nick Sirkovich will be here right after the break to tell us exactly what we got today and what we have tomorrow. Stay with us. A fire continues to smolder aboard a container ship moored off Victoria, BC. The Canadian Coast Guard says salvage crews are on the scene, waiting for an opportunity to board the vessel. A strong windstorm is preventing crews from boarding the boat and hampering efforts to recover about 40 lost containers. The Coast Guard says the fire is under control, but crews continue to pour water on the ship in an effort to keep it cool. At least 10 containers on board the MV Zim Kingston caught fire on Friday. Some contained hazardous materials, but the Coast Guard says there's no danger to the public. While not quite the bomb cyclone as it's being called that walloped the West Coast, it has been a soggy couple of days here locally. Some of the gray and the wet scenes from earlier today you can see there. And while things have tapered off, a record rainfall was set yesterday. According to Environment Canada, 24 millimeters of rain fell on Sunday. The previous record was 21 millimeters, and that was a record set in 2000. So with that, we're going to bring in Nick Cirkovich because we got plenty more rain today, Nick.
Yeah, we did. I'm still waiting on the numbers to come in. We don't have a lot of stations in southwestern Ontario. The one we typically rely on is the one at Windsor Airport, but that's an automatic station, so it takes these numbers automatically. Environment Canada should get these numbers together, and then I expect we'll see them for tomorrow. That being said, the record for today was about 34 millimeters of rain. That was set back in the early 90s. So we'll see if we broke that. There is a rainfall warning in effect still for southwestern Ontario, but it looks like most of the rainfall is kind of tapered off right now. So here's what we're seeing on the radar. Again, a lot of the rain showers out toward the east. We've still got tapering showers down in southwestern Ontario. It's part of a much larger system that's moved through. And as you heard, some record rainfall for yesterday, and this rain actually continued for the better part of the last 24 hours. Rainfall warnings still in effect up to 60 millimeters down in southwestern Ontario. That's the areas in green. And special weather statements to the east of that. So lots in the way of wet weather. But again, most of it kind of pushing eastward at this point, at least for Windsor. For tomorrow morning, still some light showers down in southwestern Ontario. Again, a lot of the rainfall out around the Golden Horseshoe and areas east of that. Into the afternoon, we might actually see some sunny breaks out toward Windsor. I think anywhere sort of east of Windsor, still into the cloud cover and off light showers. But most of the rain is pretty much tapered off even as we head through tonight. And then heading into Wednesday, I think we're going to see some sunny breaks in there. Temperatures a little on the cooler side, 10 degrees right now as we head through tonight. We've got overnight lows of about 7 in Windsor, 6 elsewhere across southwestern Ontario. Again, 10 degrees tomorrow, tapering showers. Likely seeing a few sunny breaks in there for sort of right down in southwestern Ontario. And it gets warmer after that. So there's the sun I promised you for Wednesday, a mix of sun and cloud. Thursday starting to cloud over at 15 degrees. And then heading into Halloween weekend, we've got some rain showers. We'll have to watch for Sunday, but at least for Friday and Saturday, some more wet weather.
More wet weather. Got to keep those umbrellas close and nearby.
Yeah, and strong ones too. It's gusty. I mean, we've had wind gusts up to like 40 plus kilometers per hour.
Not ideal, but it's October.
That's
how it's supposed to be. Thanks for that, Nick.
Yeah, you bet.
So when we come back, we're going to tell you about a project that encourages people to take selfies in order to help scientists monitor Canada's coastline. So we'll tell you that story right after the break. Stay with us. poppy season has arrived. The Royal Canadian Legion launched this year's Remembrance campaign at Rideau Hall today.
Your Excellency, I present to you with the first copy of the 2021 National Poppy Campaign.
Governor General Mary May Simon received the first official poppy in Ottawa. This marks the 100th year of the poppy as a symbol of remembrance. It was originally inspired by John McCrae's poem In Flanders Fields. The Legion says close to $20 million is usually donated during the days leading up to November 11th each year, and that money goes directly to initiatives that support veterans. It's hard to resist taking a picture or two or several of that perfect shoreline scene. But now there's another reason to take those photos along some Canadian coastlines. You'll be contributing to science.
I proposed the idea internally. The University of Windsor simultaneously reached out to discuss a collaboration, and it was just the stars aligned.
This is what he's talking about. Special cell phone cradles where people can take photos and share them with Parks Canada. They're in place at 5 national parks right now. Because the photos will always be from the same location, Parks Canada and researchers at the University of Windsor will be able to use the photos to help monitor coastal changes. The initiative even has a cute name, Coasties, for coastlines and selfies. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For more, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Have a wonderful night. Thanks for watching.